Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new TNG model to take a look at. I was actually at the point where I didn't think I'd ever get a hold of this one or a lot of the other TNG models because from what I've been told, there isn't like a guarantee that a lot of these other figures we had seen are going to get released, and I don't know what's going to happen there, which is going to be a huge bummer. And I really want to get like the Carnotaurus, the Giganotosaurus, the T-Rex, all of that stuff. There's also an amazing Allosaurus and everything, and I really want to get a hold of all of that stuff. But from what I've been told, I guess they didn't have enough pre-orders or something. Now, I don't know if that's true, but as of right now, I don't know what's going on with the TNG line. So I was really quite surprised when this one had popped up on AliExpress, as it was one of the two Velociraptors that they were promoting the release of. So I was really happy to grab this one as quickly as I had seen it and add it to my collection. But having it here in hand, I will say this is the first time that I've ordered one of these TNG models that I'm almost a little let down by it, because a lot of the TNG figures have been extraordinarily beautiful, some of the best that I would say I have in my collection, but this one doesn't quite meet the same quality as the others. I'm not saying it's bad by any means, but I really would have preferred that rather than taking the Jurassic World route, which we can clearly see this is a Velociraptor Blue attempt, I would have much so preferred that they continued on the path that they were on before, where they were just creating their own dinosaurs, some accurate, some not so much, and just steering away from the Jurassic World stuff. But at the same time, you can look at it as kind of being just like an scaly raptor with similar colors to Velociraptor Blue. But even if you look at it as being Velociraptor Blue, first of all, the head sculpt doesn't look like blue or anything, and the coloration isn't really that great. It doesn't look that good on the figure. It doesn't look terrible either, but it also kind of follows its own trend. You can see it's not exactly to the way the colors look on Blue, where the blue would come up and over the eye on that side and then stop short on that side. So it's almost like they just sort of took inspiration from Blue, even though I think they were clearly trying to capitalize on the popularity of Velociraptor Blue. But one thing about the figure, it does have an articulated jaw, and I have already noticed that the jaw is kind of crooked when it's open. It looks a little goofy when you look at it from over here, and it's also really loose. You can see it just kind of drops. So that's a little bit of a downside for the figure as well. Look, it doesn't really close all that well either. It also has articulated arms, which is pretty interesting as well. And one thing that's even more interesting, I think, than that is the fact that there was this random plant that came with it. I don't know if this is something that the AliExpress seller I purchased this from just threw in, or if this is something that's actually supposed to be released with this raptor. That I don't know, but they did include a random plant, I guess, to display with it. But regardless, I'm pretty excited, even if it's not the best thing ever, to take a look at this right now with you guys. So let's jump to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Velociraptor, you can see again there's some okay looking paintwork to the face outside of that blue stripe. There's got some nice grayish tones, and you can see actually a little bit of variation to them. You can also see kind of like some pinkish tones there, of course from the inside of the mouth, but running along the jawline there, even when it's closed, you can see some lighter grays here for the lower jaw and everything. The nostrils sculpted out here at the tip of the snout. There's also a little bit of a dry brushing of a lighter color right there on the snout leading up here onto the top of the head, just to add a little extra color variation. We've got the eyes painted pretty nicely. Again, there's like a very dark reddish tone, and then you've got a yellow and a black slit-like pupil. And that looks okay for what it is. We, of course, do have an articulated jaw, as I already mentioned, and it actually looks... I tried to push it closed. I've had this here for a few days. I tried to keep it closed to see if I could move the mouth back into place, because when I opened it before, the jaw was over really far. Kind of looks like maybe I got it back into a decent position, so it doesn't look super goofy now from the side like it did when it first arrived. I don't know, maybe it was just warped a little bit. But you can see we've got some okay looking paintwork there, nice light pinkish tone for the skin there on the inside of the mouth. You've also got kind of like a very dark pinkish tongue, and the tongue sculpted pretty decently. You've got the teeth, which the teeth are a little bit sloppy looking, not too bad though. I don't know what's going on. There's like a random tooth that looks like it's kind of misplaced right there. And then you've got some pretty nice looking paintwork for the teeth here on the lower jaw. That actually does look pretty good down there. And the jaw, like I said, is really loose. You can see as we move it there, the jaw just basically drops You can get it to close, though. You just have to push it nice and tight, and it closes pretty decently. As I said, though, the head sculpt doesn't really look so much like Velociraptor Blue, but one thing that I actually really do like about this is I feel like the head sculpt almost resembles the old Phil Tippett stop-motion film where they had the Deinonychus, if you can recall that film. And also they used that same footage in the Dinosaurs documentary with Christopher Reeve. If you are familiar with that old film, then you might remember the Deinonychus that kind of hunt and kill a Struthiomimus in that film, and I feel like it almost resembles that. And once I had actually got this here in hand, I almost felt like buying another one to kind of give it that paint scheme that Deinonychus had, to see if I can kind of replicate it, because it would be super, super cool to have a model of that. But you can see the eye and everything looks just as nice over here. Actually, I think a little better over here on this side compared to what we had seen on the first side. As you move down the course of the neck, you can see there's some darker tones of grays up here on the top, somewhat lighter tones of grays on the side, and then we have a light dry brushing here, similar to the dry brushing we saw on the top of the snout, running down along the underside of the raptor. The blue stripe continues to run down here. We do have that white outline, similar to the way it appears on Velociraptor Blue. And again, as you move down, you have an articulated area here with some articulation in the arms, and you can move those up really quite far, alter them however you want. They can move however you want, because each arm moves independently. But actually, let's pull them back up so we can get a little bit of a look there at the stomach. You can see the skin texture looks pretty decent, definitely very nicely detailed as far as the fine detail goes. You've got the spinal column here running along the top of the dinosaur. You've got some nice muscle definition moving down, more varying grayish tones. You've got like that lighter gray in the stomach, lighter gray there on the knee. The knee itself is also nicely sculpted, and you can see there's some darker tones beginning at the knee, running down the front of the shin and then down into the foot, kind of highlighting the scoots of the foot. Very nice big claw right there, of course, with the sickle claw. And you can see that we've got some more nicely painted nails, kind of a little bit sloppy right there on the toe right in the center, but you can see it does have a nice gloss coat to the nails as well. We do have dew claws, those as well are painted, so that's a plus. And then we move up into the tail. Looks like mine might have a little paint defect there, where the blue stripe kind of has been like pulled off or broken up right there. Don't think that was meant to happen, but the tail has a pretty nice curve as you lead out, decent looking. And here's one area that's quite different than Velociraptor Blue, because the striping actually leads up and connects here on the tail. That's not something that you do see on Blue, so I kind of like the fact that they sort of gave it a little bit of an original sort of an appearance. As you move here along the underside, you can see again what the detail looks like. You can also see there is a cloaca present on the underside of the raptor, and everything sculpt-wise does look pretty decent. There's not a whole lot of difference over here, except for the fact that the head is turned in this position, like facing toward us. You can see the skin texture and everything of the neck looks pretty decent, but you can also see the leg is trailing over here, stretching the skin off of the stomach, also giving us a much better visual of the detailing there in the stomach region. And you can see how the leg is trailing a little bit there. It doesn't look like the raptor's really running or anything, just kind of walking, I would say. And the same sculpt and everything applies over here as what we had seen on the first side. Not too different, except you can see that the sickle claw is extended upward, lifted up off the ground more so than what we see on the opposing side. And of course the tail then bends toward us over here. But, it's not my favorite of the figures that I've had, arrive from TNG, but I will say it's definitely not a terrible figure by any means. Again, with the resemblance of having like that Deinonychus look, I really quite like that. It's just that, rather than replicating Velociraptor Blue's colors, I think I would have just preferred they, came up with their own coloration for it. I think it would have been a way better looking version, but still it looks fairly decent. But one thing, when I had first seen this raptor and I first pulled it out of the packaging, I thought looked kind of similar to the Rebor raptor. And I didn't notice this when they had first released the promotional images. So I broke out my Rebor raptor to see how similar they were, because it's pretty clear that a lot of the figures TNG have out, they kind of took some inspiration from other figures and kind of gave them a similar look as far as like the stance, like the Cryolophosaurus has a similar positioning to the Eutyrannus from PNSO and stuff like that. So obviously similar to what many companies do, like Papo does it all the time, where they take inspiration from other people's work and, use it for their own. I felt like this looked pretty similar to the Rebor Velociraptor. And one of the things that immediately struck me as similar was the fact that we have articulated arms on this figure, just like we do for the Rebor Raptor. And it doesn't want to stand, it just fell over. But Wow, it really doesn't want to stand. I don't know if maybe that one doesn't stand anymore. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. Okay. It's been sitting on the base, I guess, for too long. But you can see when we actually have the two out, there are some strong similarities between them, except for the fact that the leg positioning is a bit different. You can see on the TNG version, the right leg is leading, whereas on the Reborn version, the right leg is trailing. The head sculpts are completely different. The skin texture is completely different. Everything as far as the fine detail goes is very, very different. You can even see the positioning of the claws and everything. Very, very different. But I felt like there were still some similarities. The head still turns in the same direction. The tail kind of curves in the same direction. Different sort of curve, but in the same direction. And the arms are also, again, articulated similar to the way that the arms were on the Reborn version. So I'm going to go ahead and say that might be where they got the inspiration from for the TNG version. But as far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about the 6 3/4 inch range, or about 17 centimeters. And the highest point is definitely the tail, a little under 4 1/4 inches, or right around 10.5 centimeters, maybe a hair over. For a size comparison, not that we didn't just do a size comparison next to the Reborn Raptor, but here we have a comparison next to Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, just to kind of give you an idea of the size of the Raptor. It's almost exactly where you would expect it to be size range, and I think to further show you that, a better comparison would probably be the Mattel Velociraptor, because you can see they are very similar in size, like really not far off at all. So if you have a Mattel Raptor, or you've seen a Mattel Raptor, just remember that the TNG version is pretty much right there in the same size range. I don't feel like we need a ton of comparisons, but for one more, I brought in the TNG Woolly Mammoth to bring in next to the Raptor and show you that obviously these are not to scale with each other. There is definitely no size range associated with each other when it comes to this Raptor, and pretty much anything else I would think in the TNG line. But I did want to compare it with at least one TNG figure, and I know the Mammoth is a pretty popular one. So this brand new TNG Velociraptor Blue is pretty cool. It's not great. It's not as nice as I was expecting when it came to the figure itself. I thought, because like the entire time I've been getting these TNG figures, every single one has exceeded my expectation by like a lot. Whereas this is the first time the figure came and I was like, well, it's pretty nice. Almost every other time I was like, wow, that's absolutely gorgeous. So much better than I expected it to be. Whereas this Raptor was almost where I thought it might be, or maybe a little bit under. That said, though, I am starting to like it more and more the longer I have it here in my collection. I have had it now for a few days, and I've really been kind of getting used to the somewhat different look to it. And again, really soaking up the fact that it looks like the Deinonychus from Phil Tippett. I really feel like it has a similar look. Not perfect by any means, but a very similar look, and that alone, I think, is making me like the figure more and more. And of course, I can always appreciate any interpretation of a dinosaur, whether it's fantasy, reality, doesn't much matter. I love dinosaurs in general, so I like the fact that we've been given kind of a scaly raptor. I would have preferred a feathered raptor just because it felt like TNG was basing most of their figures more so off of like their attempt at scientific accuracy, whereas this one clearly is a Jurassic World style figure. But I still can like and enjoy a scaly raptor over a feathered one from time to time. It's just that I feel like they should have gone with a different coloration than Velociraptor Blue's colors. I feel like the fact that they did use the blue color is something that will probably attract people to it and will draw fans in to buy it, so I can understand why they did it, because Velociraptor Blue is very popular, especially amongst children, so most people are going to see this and they're like, wow, look, a really cool Velociraptor Blue figure, I need to buy that for my kid or whatever. But as an adult collector, I would have preferred that they took their own artistic liberties and came up with a different coloration. They actually have a different raptor out that kind of has a JP3 sort of look to it with like some quills on the back of the head. That one as well has a Velociraptor Blue color scheme, so they clearly wanted to capitalize on the popularity of blue, and that's why they went that route, but I would have much so preferred, again, a different coloration. Even still, this is applied pretty nicely. I think everything as far as the paintwork goes looks pretty nice on the figure outside of the blue stripe. I think the blue stripe looks a little generic, not really that great, but Otherwise, I think the coloration looks really quite nice. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where I grabbed mine from AliExpress so you can purchase your own. And I don't know, again, what the future holds for TNG, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we start to get more and more of their stuff as time goes on, because I'm absolutely aching to get a lot of those other figures like the Carnotaurus in my collection. Regardless, if you are interested, make sure you check the links in the description. Go grab this Velociraptor if you'd like, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.